Live from Studio Disciples Prosper. Grateful to have you here. Let's rock and roll. Today, we want to talk about a panacea. A panacea, for those not familiar with that word, the panacea or a panacea is imagine this: you have a cure for cancer, you know how to solve it. Is this something you would keep to yourself? Or would you go throughout the world to share that to help relieve the suffering of those loved ones that you know personally that struggle with it and the world at large? So, likewise, as disciples of Christ, we have a panacea of something that will help change the world and change those that we love, those struggling with all kinds of problems, all kinds of challenges, all kinds of situations. And as I was pondering that, I was thinking to myself, well, I found the panacea that helped me overcome mental illness and helped me to move into the direction of making my business a successful business. I found this panacea, but then I thought to myself, but wait, I had this solution, if you will, before I was struck with mental illness. In fact, a lot of people, I don't know the exact numbers on this, but it seems that a lot of people, when they are struck with mental illness, often it's because they abuse some kind of substance. But I didn't. I wasn't abusing any substances, unless you want to call eating fast food regularly an abusive substance. But the point I'm trying to make is that when when you turn your life over to the Lord, which is the panacea, He is going to open vistas of life for you, bring you joy, bring you understanding, and multiple layers. I think of the example of an onion has many layers to it, but that's kind of trite. There's depth, great depth as you turn your life over to the Lord. And at first, He's going to help you purge a lot of false thinking, because essentially what you're doing, I love how James Allen puts it, is you're taking everything that you hold precious and you're giving it to Him. So imagine, if you will, I'm an 18-year-old boy and I give my idea of becoming wealthy to the Lord. And I give my idea of 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 who I am as an individual to the Lord. I wanted to know Him. I wanted to see what He could make of my life. And as a result of that, my life changed really quickly. I ended up going on a mission to Outer Mongolia, and I came back and ended up going to college, which I didn't think was possible. Ended up running for student government and then sat on the presidential board. And I was super engaged, dating 2 or 3 dates a week, had the nice car, was fit, and everything that I thought was important, I had. I had access to it. And then in my mid 20s, I wake up in the state hospital having just broke up with my fiance. And while I was in the hospital, my car was impounded and sold. And I put on 60 pounds of weight in 9 months. And how many of my friends came to visit me? Not a zero. And everything that I thought was important, which I had received since I had given it to the Lord, I given Him everything at 18. I was like, what in the world? What did I do? Was it me? Was it my friends? Was it my ex-fiance? Was it God? Who, why, what, where, when, how? And if you think about it scripturally, who else was like that? There was a man that was in the Old Testament referred to as Job, and he had great wealth, great gifts, many gifts, many things, such vast amount of wealth and friends and family. And the Lord Himself declared that he was a perfect man. But the adversary said, no, no, give me a little access to him and he won't be. And why did all this happen? Because Job essentially said, I fear losing everything. And guess what? He faced his greatest fear. He lost everything, but he did not lose his faith and trust in God. And likewise, when I had acquired what I thought was greatness compared to what I had when I was 18. I didn't have the courage to run for student office back then. I didn't have I didn't have the wherewithal to think I could go to college. Um, I didn't I didn't think it was possible for me to live in another country for 2 years and learn another language. Like I had so many limitations, so many things, and then I was blessed with all these things, and I was kind of intoxicated by it, by like in the book of Dale Carnegie's Think and or excuse me, not Think. Um, how to win friends and influence people. So I read that book, started living those principles, and it would blew my mind at how easy it was to make friends when you lived those principles. And it kind of got to my head. I'm like, what in the world? And it made me think about my intentions. Why am I befriending people? Is it so I can get friends and influence them? And that really hit my core. And I realized, you know what? I need to take things to the next level. And I need to start turning to the Lord more. And I did. And as I turned to him even more and tried to get rid of my intentions, which were to, be popular enough to be voted for student officer, that he changed my life again. And this time in the form of a trial, a struggle, what Elder Neil A. Maxwell calls a painful personal experience. Even that facing my greatest fear, which was to be diagnosed with mental illness. Now, why do I bring all this up? The point I'm bringing this up for is because I know there are people out there that are struggling with mental illness or other challenges. They've been given some kind of rough hand, if you will, and they may or may not have been turning to the Lord. If they were turning to the Lord and you get dealt the rough hand, then that is a blessing of the Lord, as a stepping stone, not a stumbling block, to draw you closer to him. If you weren't next to the Lord and you hit this stumbling block and you trip over it and you fall, that is him kindly compelling you to humility, which in the end is the same thing, an invitation to be better, an invitation to turn to him. Because I can tell you from personal experience, when you turn to him, he enables you with the help of other tools. He enables you, and modern medicine, for example, and friends and support systems. He enables you to see things as they really are, as they really have been, and they really will be. And he will give you the power to recognize, be aware of your weakness, and to turn it to a strength. This is the panacea. And we think often in the world, well, if I just had enough guns, or if I just had enough money, if I just had enough, all these things are just a little more study with modern medicine, we could solve all of our problems. Yes, a lot can be solved that way. Yes, it's those can be great tools to help, but there is a panacea that will solve all our problems and give us peace that surpasseth all understanding. And it will give us the fruits of the Spirit, including prosperity in the land. For those that aren't aware of me, I'm Kent Eyner Nielsen. I'm the father of 6, disciple of Christ, and having overcome mental illness after battling it for 23 years, I'm on a mission to give hope and prosperity to disciples. Why? So that they can get out of their comfort zone and share their light with others and lift other people. And to find a way to do that online, digitally, to give people an option of hope and prosperity, or whatever your talent may be, where you can share that light and lift your fellow men and inspire them to make a difference. Because, if I knew what I knew and I could talk to myself 20 years ago, man, I sure would probably be in a different place than I am now. And I had the tools that I have available to me now. Woo! So, disciplesprosper.com is where you can get access to the blueprint, the 2-hour workday blueprint that I follow to provide for my family. And it enables me to give more back to my family, more back to my community, more back to others. It helps me so that I can write and study on a daily basis. And it just, it's so beautiful. And it gives me the step-by-step process. Not only all of that, but it gives me access to a community of like-minded people that are wanting to be rather than self, they want to be service oriented. They want to give of self, is what I meant to say, and to lift other people. And because when we have that mind shift change of wanting to lift and inspire other people, that helps us to be lifted and inspired ourselves. And it all goes back to the panacea. Are you turning your life over to the Lord? And if you are, He is going to make more of you than you thought possible. He has the solutions to all of your problems, and He will direct you to others that also have solutions. For instance, for me, he directed me to the hospital where I was pinned to the ground and had medicine shot in my behind and woke me up. I'm like, oh, I'm in the hospital. Oh, how'd that happen? And there's so much joy turning your life over to the Lord. And there's so much peace that comes from it. And yes, it took time for things to get solved 100%. It took time for years for me to soften my heart and to see things as they really are. But I had glimpses along the way, and it gave me hope. And now I want to back, give back, serve others, and lift them. For example, there's an organization called NAMI, National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. And on occasion, I go to that organization and speak to a group of what are called family to family class members. And in those classes, I tell my story. And time again, after I tell the story, family members thank me like, oh my goodness, this is real. Like, you gave me hope again. Like maybe my brother, maybe my mom, maybe my husband, maybe my whomever that's struck with the mental illness, they can change too. They can have hope too. They don't have to be stuck. They can start contributing again. They can return to themselves again, and as a new person, and come out better than before. Because as Elder Maxwell said, or as I mentioned earlier, an invitation to greater consecration often comes by means of painful personal experience. And being diagnosed with mental illness, for me at least, was a painful experience. But it's not the end of my story. It was the commencement of my story. And I used to wonder, why? What I do? Why am I stuck with this? I've been a good boy. I've been doing what I'm supposed to. But that 23-year experience gave me an opportunity to learn and glean and learn how to give back and how to lift and inspire other people that have similar struggles or family members, and to turn inward. And then one thing I got to add to this too is, so at the end of my sharing my story in the NAMI organizations, they almost always want to ask, how do I get my brother-in-law or my mom or my dad or my husband or my wife, how do I get them to change? And there's two things that I say. Number one, thank you so much for coming to this meeting. It shows that you care. It shows that you love them. It shows you want understanding. You want peace. You want to know it's the reality, because you may have come up in an atmosphere where like, well, if they would just read their scriptures and just go to church every week and stop doing drugs or whatever, then they wouldn't have these problems. Well, some of us did do those things, such as myself, and I still had the diagnosis, and I'm still arrested and court ordered, and charges were dropped, but that's another story. So the first thing I say is thank you for being interested. Thank you for caring enough to learn. Thank you for growing and sharing your love, and not just saying talk to the hand, but like looking for solutions. So that, number one, applaud, bravo. Number two, I say is you gotta work on you. You are the only one who can change anything. You can change you and you alone. And when you change, like the ship, when the tide rises, all ships rise. When you change and turn your life over to the Lord, then other people have the freedom to do likewise. You're like, well, but I already have turned my life over to the Lord. Yeah, and I applaud you for being here and coming to that class, for example. But you got a next level now because you're having a painful personal experience, and you're looking to change someone else when you're the only one who can change anything, and that's you. So when you change, that invites other person to change. Let me give you an example of this. So I came home from a mission it was 1996. I came home, and when I came home, there was someone that was very important to me that was in the state hospital and having a nervous breakdown again. And I taught that person until I was blue in the face. There's the gospel, there's the gospel, there's the gospel. Oh my goodness, the mission was so amazing, blah, blah, blah. I learned about who Jesus Christ is. I learned about the Book of Mormon. I learned about this. I learned about that. Change, listen to these things. Change, 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 change. And it was like they fell on deaf ears. And then I remembered something. This was probably a year later after browbeating, if you will, this person, but it didn't work. About a year or so later, it occurred to me, Kent, you got to do what you learned in the mission field and what St. Francis of Assisi taught many years ago, which is preach the gospel your whole life, and when necessary, use words. Zip the lips, in other words, and speak love. And it was amazing. For the next 5 years, I did that. I stopped browbeating. I stopped telling him he needs to change. I stopped telling blah, 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 blah. And this man, incidentally, I ended up setting him up on a date. And he ended up dating a woman again. And they're both dear to me. And I said to him, or after he went on the date with this woman, he said, man, I want to marry her. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Let's do this. Wow, wonderful. Where do you want to be married? That was $1 million question. And I had stopped talking to him about the gospel of Jesus Christ. I just loved. And then he said, without batting an eye, in the temple, of course. So what am I saying? What am I suggesting? That you can change you, and you're the only one who can change you. And when you change, it gives other people the opportunity to change because you start loving people instead of telling them what they need to do to change. And when you love people, that invites them to look at you with a new eye. For example, if you say you're accustomed to boxing, and if someone punches you in the nose, what do? You punch them back twice as hard as twice as much. So if you go and punch someone else in the nose and they don't punch you back, you're like, whoa, why didn't you punch me back? Because the Master Jesus Christ taught me to turn my cheek. And that causes people, when you love people, despite their biting remarks or biting criticism or biting whatever it may be, when you love them in return, and pray for those that despitefully use and abuse you, and serve those and love those that are your enemies, it sets them off guard because they're not accustomed to that. They haven't known someone who was Christ-like before. And when you love like the Savior loves, it gives other people an opportunity to receive him and to recognize, oh, wait, maybe I shouldn't have punched him or said that abrasive comment. That wasn't appropriate, because that there is a good person. That there is a man of God. That there is someone who's striving to serve me and other people by sharing the love of God. So, the panacea, we'll conclude with where we started. The panacea of all our situations, all our problems, is love. Love is the one thing that never endeth, or never faileth, excuse me. That never faileth. It is infinite. It is, some people use the word unconditional, but that word's not appropriate. There are conditions upon it. It is infinite, however. And when you are filled with this love, you serve other people. And when you're filled with this love, you're drawn closer to your Maker. And when you're filled with this love, your neighbors are drawn closer to the neighbor, to the Lord, because they know you. Preach the gospel your whole life, and when necessary, use words. Love other people, serve other people, and share your light on a hill so that other people that are struggling where you once struggled may learn from you and be catapulted to the next level of knowing the Lord because they knew you. And if you want help with a digital marketing system to help you spread that light online, to give people more options online, go to disciplesprosper.com and let's tap into this system that teaches you step by step how to do that, gives you community of access of like-minded people, and you get to work with me, and we can help build something greater than ourselves. So if this is up your alley, sounds like something to do, let's hit comment yes in the comments, and we'll do this. We'll connect, and look forward to working with you. Have a beautiful day, and remember, the panacea is when you turn to the Lord, He turns to you, and He will help you solve your situation, your problems, and give you abundance, more than you could comprehend. Thank you.